Welcome to today's session. Today we are going to talk about the meaning of business environment. We are going to talk about the types of environment, that is the internal, external, micro, macro, and we are going to talk about the Porter's five forces model. So let's get started. First of all, let's understand the meaning of business environment. So, when I talk about the environment normally means surrounding. That means something which is, you know, near to you. So, when I talk about the business environment, it is the surrounding of that particular business. That means their customers, their suppliers, the government, taxation system, uh, and your competitors. So all these people, all these organizations come together and create a environment for the business. And now, what is the importance of understanding the business environment? Basically, once we understand the importance of business environment, we are able to take decision on the basis of that dynamic environment which is there in the society or the system, right? So for example, a new product launch is there by a competitor. If I'm not aware about the competitor, what would happen? Eventually, I would be losing out on my business. Reason being, I'm not aware about the competitor's new business product. Hence, what I need to do is, first of all, I need to do the scanning of the environment. I need to understand what is happening in the environment. What is the requirement of the customer, for example? If I understand the requirement of the customer, I would definitely will be able to achieve that uh, you know required need, and on that basis of need I will be able to create the product. So that is why it is very much important to understand that what is currently there in the environment of the business. So today's session basically will be focusing about that what is the meaning of it, and what are the types of business environment. So let's get into the detail of the types. Let's understand the characteristics of business environment first. So basically when I talk about the characteristics, it means there are the certain features which are going to be there in all types of business environment. Any environment which is related to the economic activity, which would be having the same characteristics. So let's understand one by one. First is environment is complex and dynamic. So why I'm saying dynamic? Why it is complex? But because it there are not only one factor or two factors, there are multiple factors playing roles simultaneously. There is a legal system, there is a political system, there is a demographic, there is a global environment, there is competition, there is customer need. All these factors are simultaneously impacting the decision of the business. Hence, to understand this dynamic business, you need to keep on looking at the environmental factors again and again. Environment is multifaceted, as I've already told, that it affects not only your business, but it can affect the whole industry, it can impact the whole system. Whether it's, for example, there's a one environment called as the economic environment. So in economic environment, there is one type called as the inflation. So if there is inflation in the market, what would eventually happen? If inflation would be there, eventually the price of the goods would rise. And when the price of the goods would rise, the product demand would be lower, right? So when inflation has hit, it has not hit only to your organization. What it actually did, it has impacted the whole business, whole industry, and whole economic system, right? So the same environment trend can have a different effects on the different industry. Third point is impact has this environment has the far reaching impact. So this particular environment or the business environment, what is actually doing, it is impacting not in a short term basis, but basically it is impacting the various industry for a longer period of time, or for a time period when it is not even comprehensible, right? So for example, new technology has come. So when new technology has come into the market, your business, which is existing on, let's suppose we take the example of black and white TV. So black and white TV business was existing till the inception of the business of color TV. When color TV technology came, business of the black and white reduced to a larger extent, and now it has become zero. Similar for the LED TVs, LCD TVs. So LCD TV replaced by the LED TVs. So it has far-reaching impact. It is not something very small, very meager. It has very high impact. So anything which is happening in the environment, it is going to impact your business. Fourth point is the general environment usually hold both opportunity and threat. So it is your weakness or strength. It is going to decide whether it's an opportunity for you or it's a threat for you. So for example, you have the competency, you have knowledge, you have skilled people. Any market change can be an opportunity for you. On the similar fashion, if you are facing tough competition, you are just a new entrant into the market, you do not have that much of experience of the business, any new change in the market can pose an threat to you. So at that point of time, what you need to do is you need to develop those skills and competencies so that you can beat out that particular competition. Next point is development in the general environment changes the competitive battle line. So basically, general environment changes may alter the boundaries of industry and change the nature of its competition. So again, let's suppose inflation has come, as we have already talked about one factor of economic environment. So inflation is there. My competitor has reduced the price, right? There was a general environment impact. It was impacting all organization. But what my competitor did, it reduced the price for the product and the services. And it has, taken that opportunity to get that point, it was able to get that opportunity where it could hold more market share as of the competitor, because it has reduced the price looking at the general trends. And if you have not followed the suit, what would happen? Eventually you would lose out on your market share. Types of business environment. So basically there are two types of environment. One is internal environment and external environment. Let's first understand the internal environment. Internal environment is basically which is controllable. That means business has certain authority, certain actions which he can take or it can take, so that it can convert any kind of situation into its own for its own benefit. So, for example, financial resources are there, physical and human resources are there, objectives of the firm, work environment, corporate image, labor management relationship, and technological capabilities are such examples of the internal environment. Now, when I talk about the external environment, it is further categorized into two parts. That is the micro environment that is directly impacting the business, and then there is a macro environment which is impacting the whole economic system rather than the one particular company or the industry. So, now let's talk about the internal environment. So, as discussed, there are certain characteristics and there are certain features of internal environment. So, what comprises of internal environment? It is the resource, whether it's the human resource or the financial resource. It is unique to the business. So you have world class labor, you have world class skilled people, that is unique to you, that is very different from any other organization. You can raise a number of you can raise funds from a number of sources, such as capital is raised from the bond, or it is raised from the equity, or it is raised from the loan. So it depends. That is your capital structure which you have created. Then what is the strategy you're going to use? So every company has its own set of strategies and methods by which it conducts the business, by which it remains in the market, right? Then we have the stakeholders. So stakeholders are basically the people who are directly being impacted by the decision of the company. These are employees, these are the shareholders, these are the customers, these are the general public, society. These are the stakeholders. So what are your goals to satisfy these stakeholders? That is again related to this particular organization. So internal environment in a nutshell, an environment which is controllable, which has direct impact on the business, and it has some advantage. The some advantage can be used for the purpose of getting the advantage over the competitors. Now, moving forward and talking about the micro environment, which is the part of the external environment, we have company, suppliers, intermediary, competitors, publics, and customer. So, when I talk about the customer, it is the direct, uh, you know, transactional relationship which is formed by an organization to its customer. So I am existing only because of the customer is there. If there is no customer for my product, there is no point of having the existence of that particular business. So customer is directly impacting the business of the organization. Secondly, competitors. So what my competitor is doing, it is buying it basically, let's suppose it is buying the raw material I require. It is hiring the people which I require. It is taking away the market share of the product which I have. So how my competitor is doing in the market, I need to keep an eye on that, on which I have very limited control, but it is directly impacting my business. So under micro environment, you will see the direct impact on the business, which are less controllable as compared to the internal environment factors. Third is your supplier. Now what do we mean by supplier? Suppliers are the organization which supply the raw material, which supply the aids, which supply provide the transportation services. So these suppliers, basically when I talk about the raw material, are very key people in the organizational micro environment. Reason being, if raw material is not given to me, eventually I will not be able to deliver the goods. Hence what I require that particular supplier to be supplying me or providing me the right amount of supplies or the raw material on time. Hence, if supplier is not there, supplier or there are very limited suppliers in the market, definitely I might have a very less bargaining power as compared to the when I have more suppliers in the market. Now coming to the dealers and distributors, these are the key people who are going to distribute my product in the market. These are the marketing channels. These are the organizations such as the retail stores, the dealership um outlets, which are going to provide the product to the end consumer. So if these are limited, it will be very difficult for me to actually distribute and sell my product. And lastly, when we talk about the investors, these are the people who invest in the organization with a vision of gaining the profit. So if I'm not keeping my investors happy, if I'm not keeping my investors you know motivated to invest in the organization by not providing the adequate amount of profit, or I might increase their wealth, then definitely they will be taking out that money. And if they take out the money, there will be very difficult situation to keep that business keep on existing, right? So this is the part of the macro environment. Now let's talk about macro environment. So basically it has political environment, which we call as pestle also. In macro environment, basically there is a indirect impact on the organization, which means this environment is going to impact the whole system, whole industry, not just your company, right? So for example, any calamity is there, that is the ecological, environmental change, again that is impacting the whole area. So not only your particular business but whole area would be impacted. Let's suppose any law is changed for the gaming business, right, for online gaming. So not only specific to your firm, it is relevant for all the firms which are into the online gaming business, right? When I talk about the political, so what are the policies, whether these are let's suppose these are for the capitalism or for the socialism. So what are the policies which are being created by the concerned political party or by the government? So that is going to direct the system how we are going to conduct the business. Again, it is not specific to the one organization, rather it is rather generalized for all the business category in that particular industry. Economic system, we have discussed that, let's suppose inflation is there, recession is there, purchasing power parity is low, or purchasing power, standard of living, these are the characteristics of one particular economy. If these are positive, the parameters are good, definitely economic system is strong. But if the parameters are not good, that is impacting the whole economic system of that particular country, not just specific to you. Then the social norms, cultural norms, society, their values, their ethics, these comes under the societal values. So for example, in India beef is banned, so this particular business is not flourishing in India, reason being it is banned. It is pretty much clear that beef is not allowed. So this is not because of any kind of environmental reason, or anybody is having a meat of different kinds. What is the problem with beef? But the problem is it is basically not a problem. It is basically the belief that the cow is our mother, and definitely we cannot cut that, which is very sacred. So that belief system, that societal norm is disallowing one particular business to not grow, right? So this is all, these kind of factors come under the macro environment. And now let's move further and talk about the national competitive advantage. It is very, very important to understand that what is the meaning of five forces models and what is the national competitive advantage. So if you are into the business, if you are into the market, you need to ensure that your business is sustaining and not anyone else's business. That means you are at the top. So what are the five forces? This five force model was given by the Michael Porter, which identified that these five forces are going to devise that this business is going to flourish. Now let's understand what is the meaning of five forces model. So talking about the five forces model, there is the first force which is called as threat of new entrants, which means if there is a threat of new entrants, definitely you will have to reinvent, revamp, and renovate again and again. That means there can be a potential entry for a new entrant into the market, and if it is there, your business is not safe. How you can create that particular barrier so that the new entrants, even if it tries, it cannot come by achieving the economies of scale, by doing the mass production, by providing the unique and differentiated product, by providing the value to the customer, by creating that brand name, so that whenever one product comes in the mind, that customer buys your product, not anyone else product. So that's how you can create that barriers to the entry. Now talking about the next force, that is the supplier bargaining power. What is the meaning of supplier bargaining power? Basically, it is the power with the supplier if they are in the less number. So let's suppose there is an industry of steel, right? You are basically dealing in automobile sector, and you require steel for the manufacturing of your automobiles. But there are, let's suppose, only two supplier in the market, right? So if there are only two suppliers in the market, these two suppliers will have their own terms and conditions to supply the raw material to you. Had there been 20 suppliers, you could actually go to different suppliers and negotiate about the price of the steel and the quality of the steel. But if they are less in number, they have more power, right? They are more valuable. That is why you cannot bargain on the price or the value or the quality. Hence, you need to identify, if my business is such, do suppliers have more power or do I have more power as a business? So if you identify that suppliers are more, I would be very much competitive in that particular business. If the supplier has more power than me, then I would not be very much competitive in my business. Now, coming to the next power, that is the customer bargaining power. Now, what do we mean by customer bargaining power? Customer bargaining power is basically when the customer has the power to bargain. If they are large in number, if they are humongous in number, definitely they don't have power, right? So what I'm trying to say is, for example, if customers are 1000, if one customer is saying that your product is bad, but rest triple nine customers are okay in buying your product, you will not be concerned about that one particular customer. You would say, fine, he has a different taste, he's not interested in my product, I will sell it to the other customers. But if customers are very limited, let's suppose you have only two customers of your product, does this happen? Yes, definitely it happens. In terms of, let's suppose government is a customer, right? So government is one customer buying the product and services from various organization. Now the since government is only one and people want the tender of the government, what they do, they actually agree to the terms and conditions of the government, because that's the ruling government who's providing the opportunity to do their work, to do their job. Had it been the other way, otherwise, definitely the terms and conditions will not be put by the customer but would be put by the organization. Now coming to the next is internal competition, that is the rivalry, that is the direct competition. So it's a classic example of Coca-Cola and Pepsi. So when I talk about direct competition, I am selling, you are selling the same thing, so you are going to snatch my market share. I need to keep a very strong eye on you and very keen eye on you, that what my competitor is actually doing. So once I am able to identify that what is the strategy I may replicate, or I can actually go beyond that strategy and do the business. Now next is the threats of the substitute. So what is the threats of this substitute? So for example, tea or coffee. So in rivalry, you would be talking about the brew and Nescafe. But if you are talking about the substitute, you would be talking about the Taza tea, and you would be talking about the Nescafe coffee. So these are related products but not directly rivals. So if the substitutes are available in the market, definitely there are chances that people might stop buying your product. But if there is no substitute in the market, definitely people would buy the product irrespective of the price, irrespective of the offering you are providing. So if there are less number of substitute, you have the edge over the others. So that was about the five forces model. I hope you understood what has been explained to you. Now let's talk about the barriers to entry. So, as I already told about the entry barriers, that there is a threat for the entrance, new entrance. So, how I can actually reduce that threat by doing these kind of things, that is the economies of scale, which means you are doing a mass production. When you are doing a mass production, your fixed cost is going to reduce over a period of time and you are going to enjoy the economies of scale. Your total cost is going to reduce over a period of time. That's the economies of scale. Next is cost disadvantage independent of scale. So beside economies of scales of existing firm, other may have many cost advantage as a proprietary product knowledge, such as patent, favorable access to raw material, favorable location, lower borrowing cost and government subsidies, so your cost is still lower, or you have a edge over the other competitor because of these features, such as you have a patent, you have created something, you are having a trademark of that particular organization, that also creates a disadvantage for the other organization. Then we have the learning and experience curve. So as you grow in the organization, as you grow the organization altogether, you understand that how things work, how we can gain the market access, how we can actually reach out to the customer, what customer like, you understand and predict the behavior of the customer and the supplier, government, you make relations. So everything happens over a period of time. It's not a matter of one day. So once you learn that, you have a edge over your competitors. So you think that on the very first day you would have the experience on the learning curve. That is not going to happen. You would require some time to actually attain that knowledge and experience. Now, talking about the next entry barrier, that is the product differentiation. So, basically, product differentiation is nothing but you are providing a product which is unique to the consumer. For example, everybody is selling the Android phone, but you are selling the iPhone. That is, you have a different operating system and it is of the premium class. You are actually providing something valuable and exceptional to the customer, hence, product is being sold because of its distinctive characteristics. It is not generalized product. So once you have that, you have the edge over your competitor. Next is your capital requirement. So if you have lower capital requirement, if the capital requirement is limited, definitely you would have a better situation, and barriers of entry would be lesser. Then next is the switching cost. Switching cost is basically the pain of switching from one particular organization to the another organization. Let's take the example. So now we have the mobile number portability. That means I can actually keep my number but port my network operator, that is whether it's Idea, Vodafone, or it's Airtel or Jio. So it is easier for a customer to switch from one network to another network. But earlier that was not an option with us. That means if I need to switch to the another network, I would need to buy a new number. So losing that number was a cost for the switching. So if switching costs are higher, definitely customer would be retaining. If the switching cost would be lower, the customer might go to the competitor. So that's the meaning of switching cost. Now talking about the access to distribution. What is the meaning of access to distribution? That means you have the ability, you have the access to the distribution network and the distribution channel. That is one of the example is the strongest distribution channel is with the Coca-Cola, it is with the Amul, right? So even if we wanted to supply the medicine of the COVID, people were actually thinking of the model of the Amul business, that how they deliver the fresh milk all across the country just in time, you know. So look how important their model of distribution is. So if you have fuller access to the distribution network, definitely you have the edge over the other competitors. So that was about this presentation. I hope you understood the meaning of the environment, its characteristics, the types, and then we have talked about the Porter's five forces model and the barriers to entry. If you have any doubt, you can actually recapitulate and listen to it again. Thank you so much.